You are not audible, Kapil ji. You are not audible.
Hello. Is it audible, sir?
Yeah, now audible.
Very much. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all the speakers and participants. We are delighted to welcome you all in the another virtual CPE meeting being organized by Internal Audit Standards Board Committee of ICAI. The ICAI has been proactively providing continued inputs to its members through seminars, lectures, workshops on global trends. Hence, we again get together for an interesting and learning VCM session on global trend in internal audit. Look ahead. Today, our eminent speaker will talk about 3 topics to enhance our member knowledge. Report writing and audit communication by CA Archana Monge, keys to managing internal audit function by CMA Rajesh Gupta, and internal audit charter by CA Gaurav Mishra. Now I'd like to introduce chairperson of Patiala branch of NIRC of ICI, CA Seema Agarwal, for opening welcome address. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Very good evening and warm welcome to all present today. I am extremely happy and feeling blessed to be the host today to welcome Fintabulous dignitaries to this meeting. On behalf of Patiala branch of NIRC of ICI, I convey my heartfelt regards to CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji, Chairman, Internal Audit Standard Board, Council Member. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for providing all present today with an opportunity to interact with you and to grasp valuable thoughts and practicable ideas to improve upon our working. अगर मैं नंदा जी के लिए कुछ कहूँ तो अपने प्रोफेशन के सूरज के लिए मैं दीपक होंगी कि मैं कुछ उनके ऊपर प्रकाश डालने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ जिसकी मैं सोचती हूँ कि जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मिर्जा गालिब जी ने कुछ समय पहले कुछ कहा था, वो शायद चरणजोत सिंह नंदा जी के लिए ही कहा था, वो मैं दोहराना चाहूंगी यहाँ पे कि खुद को मनवाने का मुझको भी हुनर आता है, कि खुद को मनवाने का मुझको भी हुनर आता है, मैं वो कतरा हूँ कि समुंदर मेरे घर आता है। तो नंदा जी के लिए इससे ज्यादा मैं शायद कुछ नहीं कह पाऊंगी, जितनी उनकी जो उनका प्रोफेशन रहा है, जिस तरह से उनका लाइफस्टाइल रहा है, जिस तरह से उन्होंने हमें ब्लेस किया है. So I'm very grateful and very thankful to him. I am thoroughly pleased to welcome CA Gyan Chandra Mishra ji, Central Council Member and Vice Chairman, Internal Audit Standard Board, who is determined to enlighten our path to wisdom. I bid a very warm welcome to all the eminent speakers, CA Archana Monge ji, CMA Rajesh Gupta ji, CA Gaurav Mishra ji, and all the delegates who took out their valuable time and joined us today to be a part of this meeting. We are honored to have you all with us. I also offer my regards to all the people who made this webinar functional. The theme of the meeting today is Global Trends in Internal Audit, a look ahead. We will be having 3 technical sessions on different topics, which will lead us to an insight in the problem sustaining and the resultant solution. I am sure that this meeting will be productive and worth our precious time. We all are part of our institute with a shared passion and vision, and our passion to be more knowledgeable and enlightened united us to join program today. Thanks again to all for obliging me to provide with me opportunity to be the representative of hosting branch. So without any further delay, I hand over to CA Kapil Rajput. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Now would like to invite Central Council Member and Chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board of ICI, CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji, for welcome address and keynote session. Please, sir.
Thanks for your kind words, Mr. Kapil Rajput. CA Seema Agarwal, the Chairman of Patiala branch. 2 of the revered speakers of the day, CA Archana Monge, CA Gaurav Mishra. I can see Aarti Bansal, the Secretary of IASB, CMA Rajesh Gupta, who is taking over all the sections and him. Welcome, Rajesh ji, and technical support, of course. Let me very candidly put across that we are back yet with another exciting session on internal audit. I want to just share with you that I received numerous calls and messages from members all across the country. They have thoroughly liked this program and give their suggestions on a daily basis, which drives us, motivates us to have more programs. And in that line, we have decided at the board that every Saturday we'll have one program, and every alternate week we will have one program on auditing standards, probably on Wednesday or Friday. We have to formalize the date and then we shall take it forward to people. Our people club have joined more than 60,000-70,000 people who are regular visitors and listeners to our programs. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that we are a class apart. Internal auditors, madam started with a couplet, Seema madam, so I thought I should also come with a couplet on Hunar. So I'm reminded of a couplet on Hunar, which is dedicated to all internal audit professionals. The couplet says, हम आज भी अपने हुनर में दम रखते हैं, हम आज भी अपने हुनर में दम रखते हैं, होश उड़ जाते हैं लोगों के जब हम कदम रखते हैं. So when internal audit sets in, people start feeling disturbed, people start feeling uncomfortable because they are not aware what thought process the internal auditor would like to follow. So give me a second for my keynote address. I would like to come with my PPT. Give me a second. Is my PPT visible, please?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. So today's program will cover three very important aspects. The first is report writing and audit documentation, which is a very, very important facet of the internal audit process. The second, key to managing effective internal audit function. We'll discuss at length. The speaker would take at length all facets which are required for managing internal audit function. And third, most importantly, is the internal audit charter. So first session, report writing and audit communication. So what has to be the tone of interaction? Yes, the tone has to be soft, the tone has to be crisp, the tone has to be loud, the tone has to be rude. There are certain tones, but when it comes to tone of interaction, you should have empathy towards auditees and understanding of their challenges. It is a peer job where you understand people on a different perspective. You need to understand that internal audit is the third line of defense and is in an easier position vis-a-vis identification of issues. Internal audit has no other responsibilities or no other operational responsibilities. Therefore, empathy towards auditee is very important. What does the internal auditor need to do? It needs to have focus on process and process improvement, not on people. The common intent of both the auditor and auditee should be prevention of reoccurrence of issues. When they find out certain fallacies, where they need to plug in certain loopholes, any risk perspective is being discussed, it should not reoccur. And the focus should be on strengthening of process. The process strength would ultimately give a better impetus to the internal auditor and a better impetus to the entire committee, entire corporation to whom they report, and it can be either the board of directors or to the audit committee as the case may be. Internal auditor does not need to address people issues like whether they are competent or integrity. He has to be thoroughly on processes. The internal audit report, very, very important. Documentation of the issue. We must have the following components. Number one, the observations. The auditor's point of view has to be very clearly, significantly brought out. Management response. In response to the observation, the management has to come with the auditor's point of view. Then there has to be a consensus between the auditor and auditee about the root cause, why that observation took birth. Then recommendation and action plan with timeline. Both auditee and auditor has to give that. And thereafter, both auditee and auditor will come to consensus on risk rating, whether it is high, medium or low. And then they go ahead for risk categorization, which is optional, yet it needs to be there for the sake of transparency. It is either strategic, operational, financial reporting and compliance, all need to be put into that account. And final, root cause categorization, which is again very important, which is on strategy, which is on structure, process, technology, people. So largely, an internal audit report should encompass all the relevant areas so that the person, the reader, or end user of the report is able to effectively gauge out the basic issues. Scope limitations be called out. The lead work should be documented in the report. Information not received very importantly, must be called out as scope limitation. Please understand, during the course of audit, you find that some information has not been shared with you. It is nothing else than it needs to be documented at the scope limitation. Now, standard on internal audit SIA 110, nature of assurance. Please understand, nature of assurance identifies the objectives of two types of assurance assignments. One is reasonable assurance assignment and second is limited assurance assignment. I will stop here and let you know that in the entire world, your institute is the first to come with this standard, where if you want, you can give reasonable assurance, but if you feel that documents are not to be given, the amendment has not been so cooperative during the course of audit, you can always give limited assurance assignment. I also happen to be the chairman of Digital Assurance and Accounting Board, and I want to tell you that your institute was the first in the world to come out with forensic accounting standards. Your institute was the first in the world. You are aware that we are part of IFAC. Your institute was the first amongst all constituent bodies of IFAC, which ranges to close to 500, to come out with guidance on remote audit way back on 30th March 2020, when COVID had barely set in. So, ladies and gentlemen, your institute does a number of things which are word in the entire, first in the entire universe. The second important topic today is keys to managing effective internal audit function. So, when can an internal audit function be considered as effective? Now, you come from the viewpoint of the Audit Committee. Audit Committee feels the internal audit function is effective if you are able to identify new critical risk areas and timely report so that risk, in case comes from nowhere, it is immediately mitigated. Performance of risk audit activity in terms of agreed goals and objectives so that each and every facet is being given proper attention. Internal audit complies with applicable standards. Yes, your institute has come with several standards and we're in the process of making them with the help of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Attend all audit committee meetings. The internal auditor has to be an integral part of audit committee and is to attend all relevant audit committee meetings. Timely and accurately and completely reporting that met shareholders' expectations. Complete reporting which is at par with shareholders' expectations. And very important, reporting of prior unidentified risks which have been lingering but which needs to be given a stop and mitigation be done. Now, internal audit effective from the viewpoint of internal audit process. Please understand, there has to be difference in actual expenses and budget which has to be clearly brought out. The updated audit universe have to work. There have to be trained staff to assist the working of the internal audit. There have to be planned audit coverage versus actual audit coverage, and deviations and reasons of deviations have to be clearly outlined. Quality assurance. Yes, you have to always assure your client that whatever services are given by you are totally quality oriented. Very, very important. From the viewpoint of auditee, when an internal audit process is effective, number one, follow up on recommendations. The recommendations are thoroughly checked and the proper follow up is carried on the recommendation. Benefits over cost. The benefit have to be better. You have to add value. You are all aware that internal audit essentially is a management function and therefore benefit over cost is very, very important. Communication with external auditors. Yes, so that you are able to effectively create a framework wherein risk mitigation is at the top level. Timely reporting so that the report can be of use not only to the audit committee, to the board, but even to external auditors or people who are very pertinent to this job. The third session is again a very important and pertinent session on internal audit charter. Now, what is an internal audit charter? SIA 230, objectives of internal audit says the formation and functioning of the internal audit activity within the organization is noted in a formal document called the internal audit charter. That charter will take care of each and every activity. What does it do? It defines the objective of internal audit in line with the acceptable internal audit definition and other important aspects of the functioning of the internal audit activity. It also provides clarity to the internal auditor regarding the manner in which the internal audit work is undertaken and how the auditor's responsibility is to be discharged. So clear-cut framework, what is to be done, how is to be done, when is to be done, and when it needs to be reported. Now, indicated list of areas covered in internal audit charter. Number one, mission and vision of the internal audit function. Yes, every important function, every indispensable function needs to have a mission and vision which needs to percolate it to all stakeholders. Purposes and objectives of internal audit, why you need to do that internal audit. Reporting structure and independence, how you are able to report and what action has to be taken and what prompts you to move ahead. Scope and approach of the internal audit, what is the scope and how you would approach to create a well-defined internal audit which adds value to the management's perspective. Accountability and authority, what is the level of accountability and authority. Roles and responsibilities of all people concerned with the process of internal audit and quality assurance and confirmation with standards on internal audit. You will find this last leg coming in late, but now we are very keen that there has to be confirmation with standards on internal audit and quality assurance has to be taken at the highest ebb. So ladies and gentlemen, I come on to the last slide and I'm just withdrawing now just to tell you that your board is very candidly, very keen working to add value to the initiatives of internal audit. I call all of you to kindly get involved, not into the working of internal audit board, but giving giving services by way of writing certain specific industry guides. I requested Mr. Gaurav Mishra also when I spoke to him some 10 days back. I wanted him to come and write on internal audit checklist, and he has done fabulous work in that. I want to invite all of you. We have to create a lot of knowledge for our members and which has to percolate to members all across the country. Second area where I want your indulgence is that we want to hold round table conferences all across the country to sensitize the industry, sensitize the clients, what value add the internal audit function does. I need your indulgence, your involvements also. I can speak for long, but I can see Madam Archana Moge, see Gaurav Mishra, all willing, waiting for their term for a great, tremendous presentations. I see Madam Seema also, who was very kindly consented to chair this. Mr. Rajesh Gupta has experience of so many years, so I will not stand between you and the great, very full of speakers who have very kindly consented to come and add value to the initiatives of the board. I want to thank you all, including the speakers, including the moderator, including the chairman of Pani Patiala branch, my office, and all participants who have again encouraged us by coming in large numbers so that we are able to effectively discharge the duty which is assigned to us. Over to Kapilji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kapilji, you are not audible. You are not audible. And I will take this time to congratulate you all on Shri Hanuman Janamotsav. It is a great day. Mahavir Jayanti is a great day. So I congratulate you on. The entire country is in celebrations, but we as chartered accountants are deep into technical studies. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is it audible now?
Please go ahead.
Is it audible now?
Very much, Kapilji. Very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us. Now I would like to invite our first speaker. She's an experienced chartered accountant, over 20 years in risk and fraud detection. She's a DISA qualified, she's a CFE, and a diploma holder in IFRS. I would like to invite Sia Archana Monge for enlightening us on report writing and audit communication. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Kapilji, for your kind words. Also, thank you, Charanjot Singh ji, for giving this opportunity to present. You have already explained in a very crisp manner and short manner what ensues in the next 2 hours. Now let us learn in a detailed manner how to write audit reports and how to communicate with the auditees. So I'm starting my presentation and sharing my screen. Yeah. Is it visible?
Very much, madam. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Right. So today's topic is internal audit report writing and audit communication. So finally, with all the hard work and everything, what is the most important aspect of an internal audit is the report and the communication which goes to the auditee. Your entire efforts finally culminates into what is being communicated in writing to the auditee. What are the things that are found? So before we start, I would like to, put a question over here as to what is the purpose of an internal audit report. Okay. So is it, explaining as to what is the work we have done, what the auditor has worked upon, or is it compliance with the standard? The standard says that you have to issue the report, so fine, we issue a report. Or is it the most important factor, which I would say is bringing about change, internal auditors and change agent? The final thing which you would expect out of a report is that what is the auditee or the audit client expected to work upon so that he can bring about an improvement in the organization. So it is finally the audience or the stakeholders who are going to read your report and use those recommendations which you have given in the report to bring about improvement and add value to the organization. So this is just a gist of what I would be covering. The introduction, the relevant standards on internal audit, how to write effective audit reports, stakeholder management. So very important. Who are the stakeholders and how do we manage them? Next is auditor and auditee's relationship for effective management and communication. And finally, communication of the report to the audit committee. So this is a brief snapshot which I got in one of the posts on LinkedIn. That these are the work papers on the left-hand side, and this is how you're expected to bring about the internal audit report. So it's expected to be clear, concise. What you want to say should be readable. This is the way. And on the left-hand side, these are the work papers. You have done humongous work, but finally, it should culminate into what the audit client needs to do. Let's take a quick look at the internal audit standards, SIA 360, which talks about communication with management. So this is what is expected in terms of our audit report also. There should be clarity, consensus, with respect to what is the scope of the audit, what are the exclusions, what is the timing of the audit, how much time we will cover the audit in. Secondly, it should inform and persuade on matters important to the conduct of the audit by promoting a continuous dialogue. So it's not like just once you engage with them at the beginning and once you engage with them at the end, at the issuance of the report. There should be a continuous dialogue and a free flow of information. So you set the standards in the beginning that this is how we will communicate. We will communicate through a Zoom meeting, or we will communicate through a written report or an agile report. How are we going to communicate? Or there will be a telephone call or a con call that has to be set up. Next is decide in a timely manner that how the conflicts will be resolved. What are the stages at which the drafts will be shared and how the conflicts will be resolved, and finally the report will be issued. SIA 360 requirements, in short, internal auditor is required to have a two-way communication so that the manager, both the auditee and the auditor are clear on the expectations of the audit. And secondly, there has to be a continuous dialogue, not a beginning and start of the audit kind of a dialogue. Yeah. The communication process and protocol needs to be set up in the beginning. The modes and channels of communication have to be set up. Periodicity and timelines of communications, it's expected that it's set up in the beginning of the audit engagement itself. And the information for communication, how the communication will be presented and how the documentation will be shared. So just I have briefly touched upon the standard. Second standard, which is relevant to today's topic, is SIA 370, reporting results. Now, there are two types of reporting that happens. Okay, one is the actual internal audit report, which happens at the end of a particular assignment. And second is a periodic report. Now, this periodic report goes to the audit committee. Okay, at the close of a plan period, it may be a quarter or a half year or a year. Generally, it's a quarter. So at the end of a particular assignment, internal audit report covering a specific area or function is prepared, and the key observations are shared along with the recommendations, what is expected. Now, this report is generally issued with details of the manner in which the engagement was conducted, why it was conducted, scope of the audit, key findings, recommendations, and the remedial action plan, which is supposed to happen. This report is issued to the auditee with the copies to the local executive and the executive management. The second type of report, again, it covers as communication with the stakeholders or the audit committee. Now, this is a comprehensive report, but it covers all the activities carried out by the internal audit team in terms of the quarter. So it will be a culmination of 3 to 4 reports, but a snapshot, a kind of a synopsis. This reporting is done on a quarterly basis and submitted to the highest governing authority. So obviously, this report would cover the high risk areas. Some part of the aforementioned audit reports may also form part of the periodic quarterly reports. Obviously, the high risk areas would get covered in the reporting to the audit committee. The objectives is that all the findings are shared, and along with the procedures, management is allowed to understand the issues and take corrective action. And also there is a sound basis. Internal audit is not only a fault finding, but it is also an assurance to the management that these things are working fine. Now, the basis of internal audit report as per SIA 370 are overview of the objective, scope and approach, providing an executive summary as to what are the detailed findings, and the summary of corrective actions. It should be conducted in accordance with the standards on internal audit. Then the important factor is what is the content and format? Is it an approved format? What is the manner in which it has been presented? And finally, the way it is done, that is the documentation. A draft report is issued, and then there are discussions, and then a final report is issued after persuading the auditee for the changes required. And last but not the least, the remedial action plan. So what is expected of the auditee? Finally, that is the objective of the audit report. Now we come to the contents of the audit report. So audit report has to be comprehensive. These are the crucial contents of any audit report. One is the report title. There should be a title to the report. Secondly, the scope of the audit. So this is a very important factor, that the scope of the audit is listed out at the beginning of the audit report. What are the exclusions and what are the exclusions and the inclusions, so that the reader is clear as to what is this report covering. Third thing is the executive summary. So the executive summary as such, it should give a summary of the important findings in the report. It can also give the reason as to why the audit was done. Was it a regulatory requirement, or was it some lacuna which was found by senior management, or was it that the senior management needed an assurance on this particular aspect? So that also can be given in the executive summary, along with a summary of the important risks which have been found in the audit. The third thing, important thing, is the actual observation or the findings of the audit. The next point is, once the finding is listed out, what is the risk which you have observed? What is your judgment on this particular observation? Is it a high risk, low risk, or a medium risk? The impact of the particular observation. What is the impact? What happens because of this particular finding, or what is not happening because of this particular observation, which actually should happen. The recommendation on the audit report, on the observation, what is your recommendation and how things should happen. A list of the annexures which is kind of a back paper for the detailed observation. The management response on the observation. Obviously, it's expected to get included in the report, because what is the remedial action that the management plans to do? Are they accepting the risk and taking a risk acceptance memo and going ahead with it because of the cost crunch whatever it is that has to be included in the audit report. And most important thing is timelines. What is the horizon that we are looking at when the remedial action will get completed? Now, to start with the executive summary, the most important part, the senior management will not have time to go through entire 20-page report or 30-page report. So the executive summary is going to help the senior management to understand the report in a brief snapshot, maybe a one-pager or even less than that. Okay. So now the executive summary will answer each of these following aspects. What is the scope and objective of the audit? Why was the audit conducted? Whether it was a regulatory requirement, whether it was RBI had asked us to look into a particular area for conducting the audit, or there is a customer complaint. In banking, there are lots of customer complaints. So is it a customer complaint because of which senior management thinks that this entire area should be looked into by a third party or a third line of defense? What is the value proposition that we are getting out of this audit report? What are the key audit observations? Here you might have, 15, 20 observations, but what is it? The most important things that are coming out of this audit, which is going to bring value to the organization. The organization is investing in the audit department. So obviously it needs to know what is the key change that is coming because of that. What is the key lacuna which is coming out of this audit? And what is the remedial action plan that needs to be taken? Next aspect is what is the audit finding or what is the observation? So there are 5 C's to writing an audit observation. So mind you, 5 C's, these 5 C's are very important. And if you address each of the 5 C's, then your observation is complete in itself. So now what are these 5 C's? These 5 C's are criteria, condition, cause or the root cause of the issue, consequence or the impact of the issue, and the corrective action plan. Now, what is the criteria? So the criteria is what is expected or what is the baseline that is expected. So criteria can be achieved from existing practice or a past practice. Most essentially, it can come from a regulatory guideline. Say if it's a bank, it can come from an RBI guideline. Say there is an RBI guideline on customer service. So that can be a point of reference. Second is the condition. The RBI guideline or internal policy sets up the criteria, but what is the condition? Means what is actually there. Okay. So vis-a-vis what the policy states or what the regulation states, what is actually happening in the particular department is what would be the condition. That is the crux of the finding. Third thing, what has given rise to that particular condition? What is the root cause? Root cause can be anything ranging from lack of training to the particular department or the employees, ignorance of the employees, or it can be that a particular activity is manual and that is the cause, or it can also be that it is not doable, it is not achievable in the given circumstances. As a result of this particular observation, what is the impact? Is it a kind of a regulatory impact? Is it an operational impact? Is it kind of a regulatory impact impacting the compliance calendar of the organization? Is it just a small, small aspect, which is a low risk aspect? Or is it something impacting a large number of customers and this is going to impact the reputational risk of the bank or of the organization? So what exactly is the consequence of the particular impact? And last is, what is the corrective action plan that is being recommended? So again, that would depend on the root cause that is in point number 3. So depending on the cause, the corrective action has to be suggested and the recommendation has to be suggested. Now, how to write the recommendations? The recommendations or the remedial action plan or the corrective action, whatever you call it, how it should be. One is important thing is it should be practical. Suppose you find the root cause that there is no automation. Now, you suggest that it should be automated, but you have to discuss with the auditee, is it practical? Can this be automated? Is it feasible? What is the cost benefit analysis of this? This is for the audit client to work on it, but definitely it has to be practical. If a particular automation is not feasible, then there has to be an interim control till the time that the automation is completed. There should be a monitoring control till the time that more automation or other areas are looked into. So it has to be a balance of cost and control. Second thing is the recommendation. Which recommendation should come first is the most important one should come first, obviously. Just as you arrange the observations also in the same category, that is the highest risk will appear first, then the medium risk, and then the low risk. Similarly, in terms of a particular observation also, the important recommendation should come first. The recommendation should address the root cause, and it should mention if it solves the problem, it eliminates the issue, or it mitigates the risk. The other important aspect is who will be taking the corrective action. If you have audited a particular process and there are 3 to 4 stakeholders, 3 to 4 departments involved, this might lead to confusion if you do not mention the name of the person taking the corrective action, because each person will think that this is supposed to be done by the other person. And there might be lots of issues even while discussion of the draft. So clearly mention who is expected to take action. Where is the loss of the control? And lastly, what is the likelihood of the problem occurring if we do not adhere to the recommendation? What is the impact of that? The management response. Now, after incorporating the recommendation, the internal auditor has to incorporate the management response. Now, management response should be smart. Obviously, many of the times management will give a response which is very generic. So you have to engage with the management and ensure that it is a smart response. It's smart, specific, measurable, achievable, reliable, and timely. Right? So it has to address the recommendation which has been given, whether they are going to do it, whether they agree or not. Over here, in incorporating the management response, action verbs can be used like define, adopt, implement, review, sensitization of the department so that the mistakes do not happen, or set up another division within the department, set up another team for monitoring the particular aspects. The management response, as I said, it should be smart. So there has to be a time frame to it. Will this be implemented in the next 3 months, next 6 months, or next 1 year? And if not even in 1 year, 2 years, so till then, how are we going to mitigate the risk? The management response should also mention the name of the unit which is going to perform this task. And most importantly, just like the recommendation, it should also address the root cause of the issue. So these are the critical aspects of an internal audit report. Now, to achieve these results, you need to be both salesman, a judge, and a diplomat. A salesman because you have to persuade the auditee that this is a crucial factor, this is a finding, and it is very critical, and it's going to bring value to the organization. And if you don't do it, then there is a risk to the organization. You need to be a diplomat in ensuring that the auditee agrees to the findings. You have to explain in such a manner that you do not dilute the observation and at the same time you are not really giving or doing a kind of a blame game. You need to be a judge in many instances when there is lack of coordination between the departments and each department plays a blame game on the other one. At that point of time, you need to hear out all the parties and then address them and convince them as to who actually needs to do the change. So an important aspect to achieve these, these three roles of a salesman, a judge, and a diplomat is ensuring the tone of the findings. So the tone of the findings is not just what your finding is, but how are you saying it? Okay. So the reports must be clear, concise, and accurate. That's a given thing. But the tone of the audit report is equally important. So there was a saying, there was in the 1980s, there was an advertisement which said, Shadi or tumse kabhi nahi. Okay. So that kind of, what is the tone? What does it mean? So the tone of this particular, sentence, it gives a totally different meaning to what the lady wants to convey. People like to be recognized for their accomplishments. So it's important that when you are giving the observation, if you find that 4 controls are working fine and one of the control is not working fine, you have to state in the observation that these 4 are working fine and there is problem with this one point. Because many people have, they say that, what is it? Like, you are only giving one side of the coin. These are the 4 things that we have done. Why don't you say that? So it's important you also ensure that whatever controls are working fine are included, as well as that which are not working fine. Another thing is people like to make themselves look good. So it's important as an auditor to go beneath, find out the root cause, because it's possible that there's something which is getting missed. Importance of emotion and perception. So the way you state the finding is very important, because that will impact the way your finding is getting perceived. Use of words like inadequate or discrepancies or deficiencies. If you state that in the heading of the observation, the audit client is going to take it very negatively, because finally it impacts and it gets highlighted over there. So you have to ensure and use your words very carefully. And finally, audit is not just a fault finding exercise, although auditor is engaged for the purpose to ensure that the issues are brought up to the core and brought up to the senior management and audit committee, but he is a change agent. Finally, he has to ensure that change is happening. So this is just one small example for writing audit reports and persuasiveness. On the left-hand side, I have one statement. On the right-hand side, another statement, which is less biased and more positive. The department was unable to produce documentation to demonstrate compliance with the policy. Here the word used is unable. And on the right-hand side, the department was not available to demonstrate compliance with the policy. The word used is not available or not able. Second example, when questioned, executives gave conflicting explanations of the dedupe process. Now here the word is conflicting explanations. And on the right-hand side, a more unbiased way is the executives had differing interpretations of the dedupe process. Obviously, the word explanations gives a meaning that they purposely did it. And on the right-hand side, it says interpretations, which means they had different interpretations or different understanding of the same thing. Some tips for writing persuasive reports is keeping it short, simple and easy to understand. The words you use should be simple. Your sentence should be as simple as possible so that the person need not, read it 2-3 times to understand what it says. First things first, make your best idea stand out. Don't neglect the basics and consider the implications of your word. For persuasiveness, when you're giving the recommendations, don't use the word management should consider incorporating so and so control. Why consider? Right? This is what you suggest, right? So this should be done. That's the way you need to put it. Second thing is, before you issue the report, it's important that you discuss with the auditee, because people don't like to be surprised. So if they have the basis, if you have shared with them a draft report and the annexures and explained to them, then it's more likely they will agree to it, rather than just issuing a draft without any annexures and giving some, figures without explaining the basis. Third thing is, don't use weasel words. So weasel words are kind of tentative words which, dilute what you want to say. And it is not clear to the auditee. It was found that, some records were missing. How many records? What is your observation? What is your field work in that? Again, the opposite of weasel words is intensifiers. So use intensifiers very, very sparingly. Use facts. Don't generalize things based on something. Unless, even if you feel that this is being used, the particular observation holds true for more than one record, more than one department, still you must ensure that you present it in the way of how many out of how many samples you have observed. So be factual. And lastly, avoid the blame game. Finally, you don't have to name the person or be specific on who has done or who is to blame for it. You have to ensure that the process gets revamped and you are acting as a change agent. So this is these are just a few examples of weasel words. Basically, fairly, in a sense, probably, usually, virtually. These are some weasel words which you should avoid and weed out these from your report. These are a few common intensifiers which I have taken from the internet. Absolutely, amazingly, extremely, terrifically, totally. You have to use the facts rather than using these kind of words. Again, you shouldn't say that the management failed. If you have observed something, you state the observation rather than pinpointing it on a person. It shouldn't be person specific. Again, the word auditee is old school, they say, because many people use the word audit client as such. Another important aspect is avoid technical jargon. If you are including short forms, ensure that you are giving the full form of that abbreviation. Otherwise, a normal reader or senior management, he may not get what you are trying to say. And lastly, avoid taking all the credit, in the sense that it's just your job that you are doing. It's not that the person is inefficient and that's why you are finding out it. You are an internal auditor and it's your job to find out the lacunae in the particular process. Just a summary of the words we should avoid, that is failed, neglected, inadequate, ineffective, or a process has been violated. And things to avoid. Obviously, you need to ensure that you do a quick spell check, grammar check, factual errors and numerical errors. The figures are all tied up, the annexures are all tied up, and the numbers are all in sync. This needs to be ensured. Finally, you have to change the audit client's perception. Many times after you issue the report, they say, oh, what's new in it? This is something which we already knew. We only informed you that this particular lacuna is there. Now you are telling that to us in your audit report. Yeah, you can avoid this by when you're initiating the audit itself, you can tell them that you can self-declare the issues which you are already working on, so that will not be a part of the report because that is already known. Okay. So this way you can avoid it so that you don't get an audit client coming and saying, oh, we already knew it, or the issue is self-identified. We ourselves told you about this. Yeah, and very frequently people give a response that we have done 95 things and you are talking only about the 5 things. So give a feedback, give an assurance about how the particular process is working. Give a recognition of the good work as well as the observations. And finally, it's upon us to ensure that the executive summary gives a good feedback about what is the overall conclusion, what is the risk rating for the overall process. The next point is regarding communication with audit clients. So who are the stakeholders? Again, the statutory auditor is an important stakeholder. Audit committee is a crucial stakeholder. Below them, we have the process owner and the C executives, who are the stakeholders, the head of the departments, and the regulator or the investor is also an important stakeholder, because these are the people who are going to read your audit report. So keeping these in mind, you need to ensure the things are incorporated in your report. Now, each stakeholder may have conflicting objectives. The audit committee might want the report to ensure that you have covered all the areas and all the areas are working fine. Senior management may work more from the point of view of, is there any revenue leakage appearing? Are my processes all working fine? Is there any major aberration found? Is there any fraud observed? That is the way of perspective of senior management. And operational management may be more transactional in nature. Okay, are there any transactions which have not adhered to the criteria? So they may have differing objectives. So I think we have already covered this slide. Now, communication happens in stages. So how it should happen? So in case of long duration audits, should ensure that you issue an interim report so that auditee has a sufficient time to go through the report. And also if there are some major aberrations observed, then at least he can nip in the bud and not wait till the final issuance of the report to take corrective action. Secondly, the draft report and the minutes of draft discussion should be shared with the auditee. There should be a closing meeting and minutes of the closing meeting should be shared. Fourthly, a formal draft after the comments of the audit client are incorporated. A formal draft should be issued that this is how your comments are incorporated and we are now going to issue the report, and then a final report can be issued. Now, draft report to final report, the auditor might have to make certain changes. And the important aspect over here I'm covering is, if the auditee does not agree with the findings, then what do you do? First option, obviously, persuade the auditee how your finding is correct. Secondly, if the disagreement remains, then the auditor can add the comment and explain the reason why the auditor does not agree with the audit client and why the observation is still there in the report. And thirdly, if the auditee does not agree with the findings, it should, and the findings is true, fair, then it should remain in the report. If the auditor's comments if the audit client's comments are irrelevant, then the auditor can provide a clarification as to why it is not relevant. Reporting to the audit committee. Now, an important aspect for reporting is the crucial audit reports need the facts of the crucial, the very high risk items needs to be chunked out and presented to the audit committee. So when the audit committee starts, and this is how it happens. Yeah. Important aspect over here is, what are you presenting to the audit committee? So you have to focus on the organization's deeper issues. What does the audit committee want? The audit committee wants not the entire audit report, but the deeper issues, comparative analysis, the high risk items, the regulatory breaches, which you can present to the audit committee. Second is provide value in terms of strategic approach. How are you benchmarking with the competitors? If there is a particular process lacuna or there is a clarification from the regulator, which the stakeholders are not clear, how are you doing it in terms of the strategy, in terms of the value, in terms of strategic approach. Third is the comparative information and trending data. Are you giving trending data so that the audit committee can make a decision on it? How much or how little information is presented is very crucial. One more important aspect is if your observation is too operational, it might not be so attractive to the audit committee. Operational issues, try and present it, put it as the least important, but focus more on the design issues, because this is where the impact will come to a large population rather than one or two instances. So this becomes very important. Again, it's not common in some organizations. Audit committee is just burdened with a huge set of audit papers, 250 papers, more than 200 pages. How are you going to expect them to read all these snapshots or the executive summaries? So you have to be very clear, what do you want to present to the audit committee? It should be only the deeper issues, the design issues, the regulatory aspects or strategic aspects, and not the day-to-day operational aspects. The second last thing is the auditor is appointed to give his observations or to point out the lacuna. So you have to be open and genuine in giving your observations to the audit committee. You don't have to be too defensive or too protective of the management, because management is capable of protecting itself. So be open, genuine, and give candidly what the audit committee wants to hear. The lacunas in the process, or the lacunas in adhering to regulations. And last thing is maintaining the independence. If you give genuine and candid interaction with the audit committee, then obviously there will be independence will automatically reflect. So this is just a cartoon of how the audit committee is being overwhelmed by a deluge of information. So that shouldn't happen, so that even they are enabled to take informative decisions. This is a small way of reporting to the audit committee. The background, risk rating of the issues are presented. Key issues 1, 2, 3. It can be in a PPT format. What is the status? What is the compliance status of the issues reported? How many issues were design issues and how many were operational issues? And lastly, what is the risk? What is the residual risk? This is just another sample which I have come across. This is not opening. Yeah, and as we move more towards technology, the latest findings you can see in this. I'm just tweeting the latest findings to the audit committee, right? So we never know when technology will take up, and we might have an audit committee meeting on Twitter or any of these social medias. So this is just a cartoon of that. And we need to ensure that we use technology effectively in communicating with the audit committee. Some final thoughts. The full form of reports is just put in the final thoughts. The output is the most important thing. So the report is most important because that's the output. The context of audit and testing needs to be explained. Phrasing is very important. Phrasing and tone of the report. Is the report written in a logical way? Are all the steps followed? 5 C's followed? Is the recommendation there? The remedial action plan included? Make sure there are no grammatical errors. Read through. Think as a reader. Would I understand if I was only reading this report? Try and read the report like a layman, like a third person. And lastly, the executive summary should be standalone. It should give a brief, a snapshot of what the audit covers. That's it. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and all questions are welcome. I will certainly answer all your questions in the last session, after the last session. Kapil, you are not audible. Yeah.
Is it audible now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us. Great learning on a basic skills to, how to frame a report. And me as an associate have so much problem in how to present that first slide, that massive work paper in a good report. So it's a very interactive session, ma'am. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Kapil.
Now I would like to introduce our second speaker. He has an experience of 28 years in internal audit. He's an associate member of Institute of Cost Accountant and working as a head group assurance and a cost control investigation and information security monitoring in SR Group. I would like to invite CMA Rajesh Gupta, sir, for enlightening us on keys to managing effective internal audit function. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, can you hear, Kapil?
Yes, sir. Is it audible?
Okay, fine. So, well, there has been a lot presented today by Singh sir and by Archana ji. I think lot of points. See, as such, the points are always, there will be some points which always will get repeated. There will be some points which will always get overemphasized. But the direction has to be same. The direction is of learning and learning basics. So what I just to for all the people, I have not tried to. I have made very simple presentation, and it may not be very structured also. The idea is that some based on my experience of internal audit, some points which I want youngsters as well as others to think about it, and even if they are able to get few points, then I think the purpose of the session will be met. So before I start sharing my presentation, so basically I just want to say is that internal audit is a function which is underestimated a lot of time. Its scope is infinite. You are dealing with all level of people. You are dealing with all type of problem solution, all functions. And so it's like you keep learning about it. No, you will not reach a stage where you can say that, you are expert auditor. That is, I cannot say after so many years. And I keep learning. So not only the internal audit involves knowledge, but it also requires a lot of skill. Skill in terms of communication, skill in terms of doing the job, skill in terms of dealing with people. That is the key. So ultimately, a good internal auditor has to be an expert manager. He has to manage all the things. That is when he will start enjoying the function, then he start delivering. So now I will start my presentation. As I said, the presentation is not. I will try that. Some learnings take place. Now, as you can see here, the first slide itself, it says keys to managing effective internal audit. Now, at the behind, if you look at the blackboard, what does it have? It has the slate, rather, not the blackboard, the slate. It has so many facets of internal audit. So when we talk about effectiveness, we're talking about effectiveness of each and everything. So I will move on to the second slide. Basically, now here, idea is evolution of audit. Now, evolution of audit has been from statutory audit to transaction audit to system audit to operations audit, etc. What is the learning? Audit, as far as internal audit is concerned, it is graduating. It has graduated into more refined delivery system. So now you're talking the expectation of the management, most of the management. You may do transaction audit. It is ultimately a lot of time transactional audit is also linked to the the data analysis and the system control, etc. But ultimately, management is looking for risk management and management audit, which is delivering to business. So it's evolving. It has evolved rather. Now the expectations are more. So as an auditor, you will also have to see how do you become a management auditor. Every internal auditor is not a management auditor because he does not understand a lot of things. You have to keep developing. Now here, it's a very simple thing which I'm putting here that while as internal auditor, you need to have productivity, and productivity is function of efficiency and effectiveness. Now, we may be very efficient auditor. We may produce number of reports, but are we effective? Have we delivered what business wants? Have we delivered the value? If we have not delivered the value, then the numbers have no meaning. So the learning here for the people to understand is we need quantity with quality. If we do not have quantity with quality, quantity has no meaning. As I said, the audit has evolved to management audit expectation. So please understand, please evaluate at your end whether your efficiency is with effectiveness and you are productive or not. Now, it may not be possible in short time to talk about a vast subject of internal audit and its areas, etc. So I'm not going into too much of report writing. I mean, not report writing anyway has got covered. I'm not going into the audit processes as such. I'm trying to emphasize what is important. Now, for internal auditor, if you want to become effective, efficiency is fine. You may anyhow just produce reports and be efficient. You may say my target is 1 report a month and I am doing it. Effective meaning if you really want to become an effective internal auditor, these are the things, these are some of the things, these are not exhaustive here, which you have to have as an auditor. Otherwise, you will not be an effective auditor. Number one is understanding of the business and process. Now, it may sound very easy, just one line here, understanding business. Understanding business is the most difficult thing. You have to understand the flow of activity, you have to understand the objective, you have to understand the strategy of business, you have to understand the entire changes which business is planning. To understand a business is very important. If you do not understand how we are going to audit. Second is you have to take, once you understand business, you have to, as an internal auditor, you have to take a correct decision with regard to choosing of the scope and sample. Because see, audit scope for any particular area can be too large and it can be too small. So basically it has to be adequate. Given the objective of particular audit, scope has to be in line with that objective. Similarly, the sampling also has to be proper. Otherwise, you will complete the audit and you will forget to take some sample which is crucial for the business. So, as I said, that you have to be a manager, and also, so why I am saying you have to be a manager, because management involves planning, organizing, directing, and controlling. So this planning part in internal audits is very, very important. When you are analyzing the data, when you're choosing a sample, and then you are planning how much time you will spend in a particular activity, that is how you are able to really align your scope with objective. Third is, in today's world, expectation is to have total 100% data analytics so that your sample related errors are avoided. If you have any technology, if you have any business intelligence tool, or if you have any other analysis tools, then you should use it. The technology cannot be replaced by your manual interventions. So please understand what technology is there, what kind of audit tools are there. If at all there are several audit tools also, not like IDEA, ACL and all that. So that helps you to do data analytics of a larger data, which manually you cannot do it if you don't have technology. So please take help of technology if required. You want to become an effective auditor. Then the fourth part we have already, the other speakers have spoken about. It's very important to work with management. You have to align yourself. Differences will be there. It's not always bad to have differences. You will do your job. Your objective is improvements. So differences may be there, but it is how you are able to convince the management, how you are able to work, collaborate with management. That is what is most important. Fifth part, if you want to become an effective internal auditor, ultimately we are not, you have an audit plan and you have a particular audit defined in it. You do once a year. That's not continuous audit approach. So what is happening in rest of the 11 months, supposing some processes and systems are not working properly, how will you address it? So continuous audit approach doesn't mean that you keep on doing all the audit all the time. Continuous audit approach means you have to look at data. You have to do data analytics. Or some area you may intervene and call it pre-audit intervention, depending on the resources of the company. You have to work within the resources of the company. So continuous audit approach is looking at the risk and trying to find out how the things are moving. You should not get a surprise after a year. That's what continuous audit approach is all about. Then you have to, as I said, analyze the risk appropriately. When you talk about risk, obviously, sometime you have to depend on the business analysis also of the risk. You have to work with business so that you understand the risk. And where you feel the commercial risk is there on the higher side, that particular risk has to be, that high risk item has to be attended in internal audit more thoroughly. That's what risk assessment. So your plan, your internal audit plan has to be risk based, because you have a limited resource, and limited resource can be aligned with, depending on the risk, you can align the internal audit resources. Fifth, moving on to the next point is innovation in audit planning. So see, innovation means what? Should I do audit in the same way which I am doing? All the audit I should do it in the same way? Should I plan it in a similar fashion? I should innovate. I should do something different. In one of the audit, I may decide to do only market checks, not quotation checks. So your planning process of internal audit should have adequate innovation, so that your creativity is maintained, and you are also not relying on the same technique which you have been following all the time. Next point is, if you want to become an effective auditor after so many years of experience also, a lot of time we do not understand the behavior pattern. Not that I'm not saying that you become psychologist, but at least you'll have to see how people behave. Sometimes the process lapses, understanding can be there by interaction of people. How they react to a particular question, that is also behavior. So as an auditor, you are not supposed to be expert in human behavior, but you should have some understanding of people so that you are able to reach to correct conclusion, or you get some information for developing it. And the last part, see, these, as I said, these are not the exhaustive points. These are some of the points, but I feel these are the important points. If auditor has to become effective, he should start working on these points. Last one is, we should never say that, how can I do better? How many internal auditors ask this question to themselves after an audit? Where have they failed? Could they have done this audit better? Why have they not been able to do it? Or we are only concerned about counting the reports. How many reports I have been able to give to management? So please, as the objective of internal audit is improvements, that is what effectiveness is all about. You have to keep on asking, how can you do better? So from these, some of the tips, some of the experience with some of the things which I feel are important, they are, see, I think most of the people must be knowing also about it, and I think all auditors, good auditors know about it. But are we, after knowing also, do we focus? We want to become effective auditor, but we do not want to follow the process. We do not want to follow the principles which are, these are the principles through which you can become effective auditor. So what is the key role of an effective auditor? In most perception of internal audit is he's a problem finder, he's an assurance provider to management, audit committee and all that. In today's transition is internal auditor has to be effective. Internal auditor has to be known as a problem solver, insight generator, think in future, and a trusted advisor. People should come to him for taking advice because he is valued in terms of his assessment. Now, I am not going into many parts, into different components of effectiveness, into different component of internal audit processes or technique. But some of the key things which are important for internal auditor if he has to be effective, one, for example, is technology and automation. Now, what automation can achieve, your manual intervention can never achieve. If, for example, if you have ERP package and if you are able to work with management and put configuration controls or the limits, etc., in SAP, then your job is done. Instead of reporting all the time that this is not followed, that limit is not followed. So the question is, technology is very important. You should know as an auditor what kind of technologies are there. If management is going for particular accounting package or management is going for, let's say, some application for integration or supply chain or whatever, you as internal auditor are also expected to somewhere discuss with management about the technology. For that, you should know the technology. Supposing they are buying some old third grade or rejected technology, the work of work may increase or the controls may go. So technology is very important for you to understand, and similarly you have to understand what technology, what existing technology of the company can do, what cannot. You should know what automation is there, what automation is not there. Similarly, the data access, the change management, and IT controls are very, very important. Again, what these control can do, your day-to-day transactional audit of segregation of duty may not be able to do it. You have to be expert in data analytics. See, data analytics does not mean generating data from audit tool or from ERP packages. It also means how well you understand data. If you are doing audit, which data is required, what analysis you can do, and what is the interpretation. Can you do the interpretation? It's not easy. Not all internal auditor can understand what data analytics is. So this is the most important part. Whatever data we get from technology or from the tools has to be analyzed correctly. It has to be correlated correctly. So for example, if you're talking about the vendor data, if you're talking about the purchase data, then you have to see which year data it is. How many vendors are we talking about? Am I talking about share of business? Am I talking about other factors? So that's what I'm saying, that you have to analyze that data in a correct perspective manner. So similarly, if we have in any company third-party software linked with our software, etc., we have to understand, because it is the interface. It is so it should not happen that why I'm putting this as an important point is that It should not happen that we give importance only to our technology and not the technology which is linked of the vendors or third party which we have put or he has put into our system. So the question is technology, linkage is linkage, configurations are configurations. And technology automation is the most important part which any internal auditor should look at. Again, I have already spoken about data analytics part, but as effective internal auditor should have an excellent knowledge, expert knowledge. Not average knowledge, expert knowledge of understanding of the risk from data. Expert knowledge of understanding of database itself, how databases are created in cloud environment today, where data is kept, who is creating the data. Somebody sitting in UK may be creating data for somebody for the transaction done in Bombay. And somebody maybe storing data sitting in Chennai. So the question is, you have to understand what is the data flow. You have to understand how the cloud data is managed, what kind of analysis you can do. Then only you can take up the important aspect of data analytics. As I said, for effective internal auditor, technology is the key. If not today, supposing your company does not have, or where you're doing audit does not have, tomorrow it will have. Tomorrow it will have, or whatever limited technology is available, you are supposed to analyze it. Please make use of technology. Please be expert in understanding of data flow, IT, and analytics. Now, what happens is in day-to-day internal audit, we get involved so much into audit plan and we start executing it. The regular audit, those P2P payment to procurement audit or revenue audit or whatever, that we forget what is happening to company. The company is not something static. Company is changing its patterns. Company is changing its policies. Company is changing its planning, or some projects are being rolled out, or some policies are being rolled out, some objectives are being changed. As internal auditor, if you want to be effective, you have to know what is happening in the company. And it may not be possible for you to be involved as in when it happens, but obviously you should have knowledge. What projects are happening, what strategy of company is happening, what policies are changing. If you have knowledge of such things, your effectiveness in terms of internal auditor will definitely improve, no doubt about it. Now, how do you get knowledge? You should get all MIS reports as internal auditor. Are you getting all MIS reports from management? Even when you are not auditing that area, there is a tendency that we ask for management information system or any other information only when we are doing a particular audit. But supposing as an internal auditor, you start getting regular MIS report, will you not be in position to be in a better position to understand what is happening? And that also is a continuous audit approach. As you know, that procurement function is critical in most of the companies, and even other third party part is very important in most of the companies, supply chain and go down and shared service and things like that. So important thing for internal auditor is that we have to understand what third party is supposed to deliver. What is the service level agreement of the third party? What is the definition? What is the objective in that? Now, if we do not understand the third party service level, we are not able to evaluate what is happening. How will we do the contract management? So similarly, if we have any see in a normal audit, we are when it comes to procurement, contract, and other big expenses, now all the time it may not be possible for you to do benchmarking. But sometime if you have a vision, you can do third-party checks. You can check some of the things from the market or from the vendors, etc. That will make you an effective auditor. How do you know quotations approach is always reliable? So if you are an effective auditor, which is not easy for anybody to be effective auditor so easily, because as I said, the scope of internal audit is unlimited, all functions are involved, even techno-commercial audits are also now coming up for internal auditor to do. With all this and technology, with all this, one has to keep developing effectiveness, whatever components are there, and then only one can claim to be a effective, efficient and effective auditor. Now what here again I am coming back to the the next generation approach. What is the next generation approach, or what is the future? Is the digital technologies real-time basis audit. Regular audit, traditional approach of audit and analytics, taking sample, issues and recommendation, writing reports, etc. will change, because there may be time when management may expect 100% review of all processes, provided all technology is there in the company. What I am trying to say that technology is growing and we should not get left behind. We have to keep pace. You may not be able to learn everything, but are you trying to keep pace? That is more important. So in terms of I will not talk much about the audit tools, but what I want to say is that these, what I have put here, are very important audit tools. The regular audit tool or the process, etc., may be different. Now, nothing can beat benchmarking and market inquiry when it comes to actual validation of information. So, if you are trying to be, or you are effective auditor, then please benchmarking and market inquiry for procurement function and contract function, etc., or for anything else, for any practices, processes, is very important. Now, high impact reporting we have already learned, so I'll not go into that. And external validation. So all it's talking about is the external validation is very important. So now we have, supposing we have adequate focus on technology and other things which I have spoken about, then as an internal auditor, what is expected as a effective internal auditor, what should be my output? Now, whether management expects or not, that's a secondary thing. Now, a lot of time we limit ourselves because what our firm or our company expects. But what if expectations are below? They're not very high expectations. Then do we not develop as an effective auditor? Irrespective of expectations, effective auditor has to deliver effective things. According to me, these are the things which effective auditor should focus more. One is obviously you are focusing on the changes, how many processes you have changed, how many improvements you have made in the process. Secondly, again, how many controls you have improved in system, IT. Third is how much cost you have saved for the company. Fourth is you are not forensic auditor. Your job, internal audit job, is not to look at find in terms of finding fraud, etc. But can you not identify if something is going wrong, and if you find some practice, some transactions, can you not take it further to management saying that, look, this is suspicious, looks. So, it's up to you, or you can cross your limit and find out. Strict adherence to authorization and compliance, obviously, is a very effective thing. Why should not be a strict adherence looked at by internal auditor? Now, again, risk part is important, and as the previous speaker said, that it is very important for the auditor to have implementation. Now, effective auditor, we have to see that what percentage of recommendations have been implemented by corrective actions. Supposing only 5% or 10% of the recommendations are implemented and corrective actions taken, then what is the use of reports? To be effective auditor, I will say your 100%, if not 100%, maybe between 95 to 100% recommendation should be implemented by management for corrective actions. So what are we saying? We are saying that assurance is fine, and we should focus on technology and process design and controls. But ultimately, that focus is also not ultimate goal of effective auditor. He has to be proactive in intervention. He should set up red flags. He should be able to proactively think where things can go wrong. That is what risk evaluation is all about. If something has not gone wrong, you've done the evaluation of the process and these are the risks, then you find out how it can be mitigated. So the anticipation part here in this slide is the most important part. Not that recommendation for change is not important, that is also equally important. But combination of recommendation of changes and anticipation is what we should look at, rather than looking only for assurance only. So I'm trying to again and again say that how effective auditor is different, and how effective auditor should do different kind of things. Now, in such, I think it is not possible to go into a lot of the aspect as such, but what I, from my experience, have felt that these aspects are important. I have talked about, and not that I have all the. It's not that I'm talking here, so I have all the traits, or I have all the whatever slides I have discussed. I'm expert. I'm not. I'm trying to be. Everybody has to try to be effective auditor. It's a journey. Now, what are the important learning of an effective to become effective auditor, or trying to cross the border? Some of the these are very important slides. These are the very important slides which are coming up. See, what report level we have already learned. See, important issue should go to important level. So I have not talked too much about that. Now, second point is, if we as internal auditor are failing to communicate matter when it matters, then we are not being not at all being internal auditor, not at all being effective internal auditor. That means, are we afraid to communicate? And if you are not communicating timely, then it is as bad as not communicating. Third is if audit takes too much of time, including report writing and doing audit takes 2 to 3 months, then the interest of audit goes. Audit has to be completed in the time frame if you want to be efficient and effective auditor. As per plan, it should be done. You cannot say that auditee has not given information, I could not get it. It's your job to get it. you should escalate. You should talk to CEO, CFO, or you should talk to audit committee and get the information. But audit has to be done timely. Then implication of risk management, we may do whatever assessment, it has to be brought out clearly. It has to be understood and brought out. This part we have already spoken that, you should praise. I also agree. We should praise auditee wherever possible so that, you get the trust. And also it is correct. Why should you not praise if 10 things out of 10, 8 are good? Last part happens, some of the auditors, they may not realize they blow up things out of proportion. They feel that if I write like this or if I focus like this, then, it will be noticed more and things like that. But that's damaging. If you put something, if you try and show things out of proportion, then you are losing relationship with auditee. Even the management will stop having trust on internal audit. So you have to be factual. Being factual also means that you should not be talking out of proportion. You should talk realistic, down to earth, factual. Next point which I am going to say, the learning rather, whatever the key points for effective internal auditors are that. So we should not be limited to what was initially planned. Now, auditor has a plan, auditor has an audit area, and that audit area, when he does the execution, he also decides on a scope, what to cover or not to cover, because he has a time. But if he, as an internal auditor, if what scope you had initially planned, and when you do audit, supposing the audit scenario is different, you are required to focus on a different sub-process or control or activity or focus, then nothing stops you from changing the scope of audit. Are we changing the scope of audit based on audit? If we do not, then we are not exercising flexibility. Now that is where our experience and vision is as an internal auditor. Once you do audit of a function, once you start looking at processes, systems, once you start talking to people, etc., from your experience only, you should come to know, you should have a vision that which area probably lacks control. And supposing that is not in the scope, you leave that area. So you have to be flexible. You have, once, if you're not experienced, you can't be flexible. First of all, you have to gain experience, you have to understand things, understand business. Then only you can talk about flexibility when you do the proper analysis and you say that I will cover the scope, not other scope. Flexibility and experience are very important. Second, this goes without saying for an effective auditor that time management is very important. No auditor can say that I have been 100% I have looked at this audit. Now people may, on paper it may say that I have taken the sample, that sample and this and all that. Every aspect of audit is not covered in audit that you also know. Irrespective of checklist. You have a checklist. But still, if somebody looks at it, something or the other will be left out. Maybe 0.5%, 0.25% or whatever. Now, if that is the case, you have to focus on important area. Again, I am saying quantity of work, whatever quantity of work you decide to look at, you have to see that what opinion you are reaching, what conclusions you are reaching. And so the question here is, this part I would like to speak more. I have also seen many internal auditors doing audit. but they are not able to, they have a scope and they have a time. They are not able to do time management, number one. Number two, they are not spending proportionate time on the high risk area, on the high important area. And number three, sometimes they spend too much time on C grade item, which they should have got out much earlier. This is all a audit execution. As I said, internal audit is an art. This it cannot be taught so easily. You have to manage your time. You have to get out of the unimportant area. These 2 points I feel are very important. One is scope of audit, as I said, and second is the getting out of unimportant area, or balancing time, spending time on the high risk. Third is that when we look at audit, please do not you look at the current control, but do you think what probably is missed out in current control, what company is growing, then what can happen tomorrow? How many, as I said in the other slide, that anticipation is very important. Anticipation quality, again, I have put it here because it's such an important point that internal auditors have tendency not to anticipate. But in today's world, will have to learn the art of anticipation. Fourth point here is, sometimes we are auditing a branch, for example, and we forget that we are auditing branch of a company. What we do is our observations and approach becomes as per the local unit, and we forget what is the larger picture, what is the larger objective of the company, what is the larger policies. So please understand, whatever you audit has to be aligned with the company. It cannot be in isolation. Now, I'll not talk much about the execution of sampling, etc. As I said, again, I have put it here deliberately. It's repeating from the other slide that technology will ensure 100% coverage. So if there is technology with the company, you should use it, or you should, budget is there, then you should tell the company to have data analytics tool, etc., or other allied technology. Now, this part we have already spoken about in the report writing, that it's not our objective all the time to write report. Do report, number of reports, quantity of reports, and write report, and forget what is the objective. So we will be ineffective audit. The larger objective of company will not be achieved in such internal audit. The last point here, the improving of the audit experience for auditee is very important. Why it is important? See, it is very difficult to have a customer, to have a all the time auditee friendly approach and get it done, because it's a reality that sometimes, the auditee may not cooperate or may not, but he will have to demonstrate to management and auditee that we mean business, we mean improvement, and then only we can bring customer approach. They will come to you for consultancy. How many, if management not coming to auditor for consultancy, means it doesn't probably trust the skill set of auditor. Possible. Not that all the time they should come for consultancy, but I'm just saying, if they come, that means they value your skill set. I think I've been able to make some point about effectiveness of audit. So, just to sum up these three thoughts I will say. I don't know if they've written here as conclusion, but I said 3 thoughts. One is that please do not forget that you are manager first and auditor afterward. Because a manager knows what is planning, manager knows what is organizing, manager knows how to utilize the resource, manager knows how to control. These aspects manager understands. As internal auditor, if we do not understand, we will not do audit planning properly. We will not do the management of audit of internal audit. Management of internal audit properly will not be able to do it. Second is, as I said, that I am still learning. All of us should see, this is very important. We see people, once they are in a job, they are told particular expectation, they are told particular plan. They don't look beyond. As I said before, whether management expects or not, are we learning? This part is very important for effective. We have to every day continuously learn, not only the knowledge, but also skills. In the last, we have to be agile to change and do quickly. That is, if we are agile and we are changing, then only we can become the next generation internal auditor and be effective internal auditor as well as efficient internal auditor. So that internal audit productivity you can give maximum. Thank you.
You are not audible, Kapil. Your voice is not coming. Not audible.
Is it not audible?
Now audible. Now audible.
Audible. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us. And it's truly a practical guidance for us to do in a practical scenario how to deal with the cases. And thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to introduce our third speaker. He has an experience of 5 years in internal audit. He is working in Big Four in risk consulting practice. And I would like to introduce CA Gaurav Mishra for enlightening us on internal audit charter. Over to you, sir. Gaurav, sir.
Thank you, Kapil. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. So Rajesh ji, if you can stop sharing the screen, please.
Yeah.
Audible. Visible.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Kapil. Thank you, Rajesh ji. I think the session of Rajesh ji was really a very practical, and it is. I fully agree with Rajesh ji that for the becoming the effective auditor or for set up the best audit or effective audit function, we need to follow all these things what he has rightly said. And before him, what Mogi ma'am has said, so also it's a quite good inputs from the point of how to prepare the reports and presentation, because I think in our audit part, so this is very important, because if you have done all the things but you are not able to articulate the observations and all, then I don't think so that it is going to be useful for you. And even sometimes just before coming to the internal audit charter, just one input, because I have also seen some of the people, I can say that they have a experience of around 4 to 5 years, but when you see from the part of report writing, so they will not even able to articulate the things from the very crisp manner, because the head of the department It doesn't mean that the process owner is not knowing anything. They are knowing the most of the things which we figure out sometimes. But in case of if we want to present it to the board or the audit committee or to the any of the senior management, so I think in a lesser word, how we can articulate our observations or our improvements, that is the best way. So let's come to the internal charter. So this is again the very favorite topic of mine. So for establishing the best, or I can say not use the word best, but yes, for the effective internal audit function, it should be governed by somewhere, some documents. Because there's a called practice and there's a called process. Practice may come from a legacy, and you just follow कि हाँ पहले ये follow हो रहा था अभी ये follow हो रहा है. But in case if that practice comes in some documents, I think that will be very useful for the entire organization. So in case of internal audit charter, if I see, so basically what means charter? Charter hai kya cheez? It is something, some documents in which the processes, rules and responsibilities, all those things are mentioned. And I think that is called as charter. फॉरेन में भी पहले जब भी हम लोग इफ वी कैन रिकॉल, सो पहले भी हम लोग यूज वर्ड काफी करते थे चार्टर का मतलब क्या होता है. सो आई कैन से दैट कि अ रिटन स्टेटमेंट विच एक्सप्लिसिटली talking about your roles, responsibilities, purposes, what is the vision and mission of the organization or the particular function, be it a audit charter, be it a rules and responsibility charter, whatever it may be. So I think that is called as charter. If we talk about the charter now, so it covers a lot of things. Means how we are going to set up our audit function, who will be the responsible person, who will be the accountable person, what would be the reporting hierarchy, and how we maintain the independence and the professionalism as well. Sometimes even you also, I'm just setting a context here. Why the audit I'll not say that it is mandatory, but yes, it is good to have. Like this someone will say that we don't need SOPs. But yes, if you want to set up your process, not a person dependent, then I think in that case SOP plays a very important role. आज की डेट में मैं चीफ ऑडिट एग्जीक्यूटिव हूं, कल को मैं चला जाऊंगा, the person or incoming CPE will not be aware that what are the audit functions and how it is being performed since last XX years. So I think it is good to have a charter, and normally all the listed companies or all the major public companies, even they are not the listed, but yes, the upper mid-sized company and even all the listed companies, they have the audit charter. Whosoever have the audit department, they have their charter because it helps them. If we talk about the charter now, they will specifically say yes, the objective of the audit function is this. This is the mission. And how to achieve that mission will be governed by your purposes and objectives, which will cover your outline. Let's take one example. Suppose management, there's a manufacturing company, and management has recently set up one audit department who is responsible for entire audits being done into the organization. Now let's take example. In a manufacturing concern, you have 20 processes to verify or to do the audit. There are some processes which is not relevant for the board or the management. Relevancy in the sense of risk, where the management says that yes, we are able to sustain this risk. But there are certain processes where management don't want to take any risk. They always want to have a better, I can say that, remediation control or preventive detective, all these controls. Now the thing is how charter will help you. So first of all, So it will say that yes, this is the vision of this particular function and this is the vision of the management. And to achieve this vision, we will govern by the audit. Internal audit हम लोग करेंगे. If we talk about the audit, then it comes to the whether it's a process audit, whether it's a forensic audits, whether it's a IT audit, or whatever the case. Different functions have or different processes have their own different risks. Now the audit department or the audit function management will expect that yes, these are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the high risk process which you need to cover every year on a priority basis. Medium risk you have to cover on an alternate basis, and lowest risk you have to cover once in a 3 year or whatever the periodicity management has decided. Now the thing is, it can be done without preparing the charter. But now the thing is, the process owners or the persons, because if something is decided by the management at the beginning of the year that yes, this is our 3 years plan, like organizations के जो भी 2 years plan होते हैं या 5 years plan होते हैं, so audit is also like a 3-year plan है. ये 3 साल में मुझे अपने पूरे process को cover करना है, and this is the frequency. If we have documented all these things into the charter, or in one of the document, I'll say charter I'll not use right now, but yes, if I have used all these things in one document, so tomorrow you are not going to justify someone else that yes, suppose if some of the, like let's take example of the production department. So head of the production told that why the audit is necessary. You can tell them that boss, this is approved by the management, and based on the XX factors, we have arrived and we found out that yes, the production is one of the critical area. So in this case, your document will help, because now it became your documented notes where all the roles and responsibilities, which process to be covered, what are the factors, sample size, your protocols, communication protocols, all these things will be defined into one of the document called as charter. And when into the charter, when you have mentioned that how you have arrived the process, क्या क्या risk rating आपने कैसे consider किया है, नहीं किया है, deep down, so it becomes an audit manual. So I have tried here, so based on my recent past experience, so I have tried to put down here that how the charter is going to help out the organization in establishing the efficient internal audit function. CA is not responsible for day-to-day functions. They are responsible which are the major risks, which are the strategic basis risks, and he will focus on this. So this is the basically theme that, so first of all, so our institute has also not mandated whether audit charter to be prepared or not. So at the theme level, if I talk about that standard on internal audit contain basic principles and essential procedures which is related to the guidance. The purpose of this auditing standard is to establish and provide guidance regarding the audit charter used during the audit process. And then again, audit charter is to be reviewed on a periodical basis and it is approved by the board. And when it is approved by the board, it is applicable in entire organization. So this is again that yes, this is the mission and purpose. So if we talk about what are the basic content, the importance I have already told that why the charter is very important. So now there are some critical component which has been defined by Institute of Internal Auditors. They have very good defined that yes, these are the component which needs to be defined into the internal audit charter of any of the company, be it a financial sector or the non-financial sector or any other sector. So first is vision and purpose. What is the mission? होना क्या चाहिए? Audit का mission क्या होना चाहिए? And what is the purpose? What are the standards of the professional practices? Means what are the recommendatory standards which you need to follow for the betterment of your audit function or executions? Now comes to the part. Third thing they have told, कि yes, you have prepared the document as a charter, but who is the responsible person to maintain, review and update on year-to-year basis? So they have also clearly identified this. And next, about the authorities and rules. So if we talk about the authorities and rules, so if we talk about the authorities and rules, so it talks about board की क्या authority होगी, chief executive, audit executive के पास में क्या power होंगे, managements के क्या role होंगे, जो audit का पूरा एक function है pyramid में, उसके क्या function होंगे, what will be the responsibilities of the internal functions, what will be the management responsibilities, what is the expectation of the IA department. अब हो गया कि मेरे पास charter भी बन गया. Now we have started the audit for one of the process, but the process owner is not ready to give the free access to the data. But suppose अगर वही चीज आपके charter में कहीं cover होती ना, then you can strongly say to them that Mr. X, see this document which is approved by the board and you have to share, and they are bound by this document. So normally audit charter जिस भी companies में होते हैं या जहाँ पे ये practice follow होती है, they follow like a Bible, and any changes into the charter that will again go up to the level of board. What are the professionalism? I am not talking about always suspect on the process owners, because we are not the forensics. Because while executing the audit, you have to understand the practical functions. And what are the practical residual risks? What are the practical ground scenario that this type of transactions happen? Let's take one example. So, आप एक company में गए, वहाँ पे आपने contract laborers की audit की, and that company is in Jharsuguda, Odisha. Now take the example, you have told that कि यहाँ पे तो मेरा contractor का dependency है. Yes, management knows this thing, but the limitation, what the limitation you can expect? Jharsuguda is the location where you will find very less number of contractors. So that's why they are dependent on one or two or very less number of the contractors. So while executing the audit, you have to consider the business functions, and you have to consider your third party view as an independent perspective from the management point of view. Then you will be able to maintain the proper professional. Now, what will be the audit scope? How you will maintain the independence and the objectivity? मेरा तो पर्पस है ऑडिट करना. मैं लोगों के साथ में काम भी करूंगा और मैं प्रोसेस इंप्रूवमेंट्स भी बताऊंगा, या हमारे जो भी फैक्ट्स गलत हुए वो भी बताऊंगा, ऑडिट भी करूंगा. So this should be the average. And last one is, whatever the work done by the internal audit team, there should be some maker checker mechanism. Now you will say कि जूनियर ने काम किया और सीनियर ने उसका रिव्यू कर लिया. No, it is not like this. The thing is, if I have done all the works, I have maintained all the working papers, sometimes we may biased कि ठीक है मेरे पास अगर 2 डॉक्यूमेंट्स कम भी आया तो कोई बात नहीं, वर्किंग पेपर तो हमने बना ही लिया. It is not like this. Always you should have the quality assurance audit. It depends upon once in a year or once in 2 years or once in 3 years. This is the case. But the thing is, you have to get it done as soon as possible. Now the thing is, I'm just giving you one real example. In case of Tata now, so because I had done some work or assignment at the Tata in one of the entity, and I came to know that वहां पे क्रॉस ऑडिट्स होता है. हमारे ऑडिट्स के बाद में भी ना क्रॉस डिपार्टमेंट्स के लोग या दूसरी टाटा के दूसरी सब्सिडरी से लोग आते हैं और उनका प्रोसेस ऑडिट करने के लिए आते हैं. इट इज लाइक ISO एंड दे आर वेरी मच कंसर्न कि नहीं सब्सिडरी कंपनीज का जो भी पर्सन आएगा उसको हमें प्रोसेस गैप नहीं मिलने देना. So that's called as a quality assurance. So this is the entire scenario of the audit charter. So let's come to the next part. Yeah. So the mission is to enhance the organization value by providing the risk-based objective assurance, advice, and insights. Sometimes organization may have a mission that we want value in terms of the cost savings or in terms of the enhancement in the process. It depends upon organization to organization or management to management. But there should be some strong mission. And to complete or to achieve that mechanism, there should be some purpose. अब कैसे होगा? हमने बोला जैसे फर्स्ट केस में यहाँ पे है. This is the real example I am showing. फर्स्ट केस में क्या है कि the mission is to enhance and project organization value by providing risk-based objective assurance and advice. So we have said that we will achieve it by providing independent and objective assurance and consulting services to add value. So this is the way how we achieve the mission of the management or the department or that particular topic. Next is authority. The charter should always include a statement on the chief audit executive functions and administrative reporting relationship in the organization. So we will come into the next part when I show you the real example that how these things are mapped. कि बोर्ड के बाद सबसे पहले बोर्ड आएगा, बोर्ड के बाद में चीफ ऑडिट एग्जीक्यूटिव आएगा, उसके नीचे जो उसके दो रिपोर्टिंग मैनेजर्स होंगे, देन ऑडिट एग्जीक्यूशन वाले पर्सन होंगे. A statement that the governing body will establish, maintain and assure that the internal activity has sufficient authority to fulfill. It means यहाँ पे इंडिपेंडेंस की बात कर रहे हैं. किसकी बात कर रहे हैं? कि वो ये बोल रहा है कि there should be a clear-cut bifurcation that the audit department have a sufficient authority to get the approved internal audit charter, approving a timely risk-based and agile internal audit plan. Risk-based audit plan का क्या मतलब होता है कि हमें पूरे ट्रायल बैलेंस या फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट की मैपिंग करते हैं. बेस्ड ऑन दैट वी do some inquiry with the process owners, with the numbers, that yes, there's a trend analysis, and based on all these factors, we define that this is the risk, high risk, this is the mid risk, this is the low risk, and based on this, we prepare the entire audit plan. If the department is not having the sufficient staff, then the thing is, how much budget, which type of audits the audit functions can get it done from outside. ITGC, cyber security, ESG, forensics, these are the special expertise subject. And you need to get it from outside. Next is the entire communication protocols. कि जब भी हमारा ऑडिट स्टार्ट होगा किसी भी चीज का, किसी भी प्रोसेस का ऑडिट स्टार्ट होगा, सो व्हेन द ऑडिट इनिशिएशन और ऑडिट इंटीमेशन मेल विल गो टू द रिस्पेक्टिव डिपार्टमेंट दैट यस, as per the approved audit plan, we are going to start the audit from this date. What should be the turnaround time? कितने टाइम के पहले आपको इन्फॉर्म करना है प्रोसेस ओनर को, एंड हु इज द रिस्पॉन्सिबल पर्सन टू इनिशिएट दिस मेल? समटाइम्स सीए खुद करता है, समटाइम्स वो अपने नीचे वालों को डेजिग्नेट कर देता है. Then CAE will actively participate in report discussions, some of the process implementation discussions. So this is some of the authority which should be included in the charter. CAE बोर्ड के साथ में कब कब मिल सकता है, बोर्ड मीटिंग कब कब होगी, ECM ऑडिट कमेटी मीटिंग कब कब होगी. उस चार्टर में ये भी होगा कि CAE is having the full access or unrestricted access of the data, subject to maintain the confidentiality. So these things we have to maintain, and these things we have to mention in the audit charter. So if you see now, मैंने आपको जो बताया था पहले, all these things are covered into this. Now come to the part of independence and objectivity. This is very important. Now the thing is, the charter should include a statement that chief audit executive will ensure that audit activity remains free of conditions. अब पता चला कि आप भी उस कंपनी में काम कर रहे हैं एज ए एम्प्लॉय और प्रोसेस ओनर भी तो है ही है. It doesn't mean that you don't have to maintain the independence. You have process owner is doing their own functions, operation functions, but you are directly reportable to the management. Even you will not believe the audit head is not responsible or not reportable to CFO. Functionally, they can, administratively they can report to CFO, but functionally they will never report to CFO. They will report either to MD or CEO or the board. बिकॉज सीएफओ को रिपोर्टिंग अगर होगा उसको, तो उसको तो कल को अकाउंट्स पेबल की भी ऑडिट करनी है, कल को उसको फाइनेंस एंड अकाउंट्स का भी करना है, कल को उसको ट्रेजरी का भी ऑडिट करना है. देन हाउ टू मेंटेन द इंडिपेंडेंस? द स्टेटमेंट दैट if the CAE has or is expected to have rules or responsibilities that fall outside the auditing, safeguard will be established to limit the impairments. Correct, obviously. And the last point is requirement for CAE to confirm at least annually the independence of internal audit activity to the governing body. They have to mention it in the report. Now come to the part of scope. अब इसका हमने वो तो पढ़ लिया कि क्या क्या रूल्स एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज होंगी. नेक्स्ट पार्ट इज ऑडिट का स्कोप कैसे होगा. That will include that the scope of audit activities encompasses but is not limited to objective examinations of evidence for the purpose of providing independence assessment on the adequacy and effectiveness of governance, risk management and control processes. It means what? हमको audit भी करना है, and if any new process is going to implement within the organization, so as an independent person, we have to give our input that this control we can put up as this is very important. That control can be either the I can say that the operational control or financial control, whatever it may be. And the next part is the audit report. When the audit report will be presented to the board. This is very important. Some companies have a quarterly board meeting. Some companies have a based on the requirement audit committee meeting. Some companies have a yearly audit committee meeting. It depends upon company to company. But suppose अगर board का expectation है कि नहीं मेरे को quarterly करना है, it should be mentioned in the charter. Obviously बात हमें quarterly करना है. Accordingly, we will prepare our entire audit work plan that this is the particular quantum of the resources required to execute all these audits in one quarter. So this is the thing which should be mentioned into the charter. Now comes to the part of responsibilities. This is very important. That first of all, the responsible. The responsibility should be like this, कि at least annually the risk-based audit plan should be presented to the management. Communicating with senior management and the governing body the impact of resource limitation. Ensure that audit activity has access to appropriate resources with regard to the competency and skills. Ensuring confirmation or conformance with the IIA standards. Communicating the result and its implementation plan to the process owners and management. It is nothing but आपको यहाँ पे बोला गया है कि ऑडिट हेड को करना क्या क्या चीज है, उसके जो बैकड्रॉप से या जो लिमिटेशंस है ना वो भी उसको बता रहा है, वो भी उनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स शुड बी इंक्लूडेड इनटू द चार्टर. और एक अच्छा ऑडिट फंक्शन आपको सेटअप करना है. यू हैव टू मेंशन ऑल दीज थिंग्स. And I can say you that once the charter is prepared with a due care and it is approved by the board, I can say that the audit department will really do the fantastic job, because they know these are my KPIs and we have to do this. So next part is about the quality assurance and the improvement program. As I rightly said to you, that you have to maintain all the working papers, because sometimes after 1 year how you will justify that हाँ अगर हमने कोई भी observations या gaps निकाले हुए which is high, medium or low, irrespective, what are the documents, which transactions you have checked, where's the documentation, because documentation can be changed by the process owners as well, no? This is very important thing. And this is called as a quality assurance and improvement program. आप 3 साल में ना, कुछ लोग क्या करते हैं 3 साल में बाहर से किसी कंसल्टेंट को बुलाते हैं, दे से दैट कि हाँ मेरा प्रोसेस ऑडिट कर दो. मैंने जो ऑडिट किया है ना, आप उसको बताइए कि हम मैंने सही किया कि नहीं किया. एंड व्हाट दे विल चेक, दे विल जस्ट सी योर गाइडेंस. आपका चार्टर उठा करके वो देखेगा कि क्या जो चार्टर में सारी चीजें लिखी हुई है वो चीज फॉलो हुई है या नहीं हुई है. So these are the things which should be mentioned in the charter. So I have written here 5 years because it was for the 5 years for one of the organization. But yes, if the management want, they can write 3 years or 2 years. It's up to their choice. It is the choice of the management. So before coming to the conclusion, so let me open one more slides. So can you see this? So I think this is one of the audit manual for one of the company. And you see, so I have written down and I have mentioned this. Yeah, it should be like this only. And if you see that audit missions and vision statement, the charter is having a various sub processes. If you see, then it's a, so all these things which has been recommended by the IIA, I have mentioned all these things into the charter, and it is approved. I don't know, I'll not show you the approved, but yes, this is the approved. And yeah, so I have written down till here only, because it is purely covering about the charter part. But yes, if we talk about the risk-based approach आप कैसे follow करोगे? अगर आपने बोला कि मुझे 1 साल में 10 प्रोसेस की ऑडिट करनी है, तो देयर शुड बी सम बेसिस कि आपको वो ऑडिट कैसे करनी है, आपने उस प्रोसेस को कैसे रिसीव किया. कैपेक्स, यू हैव कंपेयर्ड द कैपेक्स एक्सपेंसेस फ्रॉम द लास्ट ईयर vis-a-vis current year, and you have seen that there is no improvement. The figure is as it is, stagnant figure. And based on the inquiry with the management, that in the coming forward years, coming 2 or 3 years, we are not going to majorly spend anything. So now the risk rating of this particular process, or I can say the severity of this process is not high. Why? Because यहाँ पे तो जैसे का जैसे transaction है. Let's take example of order to cash. Marketing functions something like this, which is always on the down. होता है ना कि अगर मैंने एक डीलर को 10% का डिस्काउंट दिया, दूसरे को भी मैंने 8 का दिया, और मार्केटिंग ने क्या जस्टिफाई किया कि अरे they are doing the business with us since last so many years, that's why we have given the discount. बट अभी एजेंडा क्या हो सकता है ना, मैंने उसको बोला कि ठीक है तू एक काम कर, मैं तेरे को 8% देता हूँ, 2% मुझे वापस कर देना. So my intention is not like this, but मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि मैनेजमेंट का जो अप्रोच होता है, procurement of services, whether it's admin, whether it's a maintenance, whether it's some whatever the services, that will always be on the higher side of the priority, highest risk. Health, safety and environment, obviously always on the high priority. IT general control testing, always on the high priority. So all these things we should focus. So that the thing we have covered into your the entire risk-based approach. Then we have mentioned that, so what are the activities we have performed? We have mentioned all the things over here only. Next is about, so first हमने बात कर लिया पूरा ऑडिट प्लान के बारे में. नेक्स्ट विल कम अबाउट द ऑडिट एंगेजमेंट प्लानिंग, कि हमने एंगेजमेंट प्लान कैसे करना है. मुझे परचेज पे मटेरियल से ऑडिट करनी है. अब मेरे पास 4 प्लांट है, मेरे को उस यूनिवर्स में से छांटना है कि वो 4 में से कौन से करने हैं. सबसे पहले कितने रिसोर्सेज लगेंगे, व्हाट शुड बी द बजटेड नंबर ऑफ आवर्स, एंड व्हिच इन परचेज प्रोसेस ऑन व्हिच कैटेगरी ऑफ एक्सपेंसेस we should focus more. Like let's take example of the steel industry. For them, coal is very important and it's a high value, which covers around 70% of the cost of the entire raw material. Alloys, which comes at around, you can say that 5 lakh rupees kg or 6 lakh rupees kg. It comes, definitely it comes. Moly, it's come. So this is the high risk for the management. Management wants to see it very, very, very minutely. So all these things are covered as a part of the audit engagement planning. So if we see, then we have told that just before the initiation of the audit, we will drop a mail, we will prepare the work plan, we will schedule, we will send a mail as a part of communication or pre-intimation. Then we will start the audit, understand all these things we will do. We will introduce our team, because team interaction is very important. So all these things we should have to focus. So this is the, I can say that it's all about the internal audit charter. So if we see, so I have mentioned here, so just wanted to show you one thing. So like this, so this is one thing about the entire audit things. How the audit committee, ये कैसे होता है, कैसे नहीं होता है, then the ownership structures. So all these things, how we have prepared the audit plan, so all these things are covered here. So this is all about the audit charter, I can say. And these are the common parameters or common things which needs to be included. One important thing, in the every audit charter, you have to mention one clause that audit team will have the unrestricted access of the system as well as the documentation. Sometimes SAP में क्या होता है, IT team will say नहीं, हमारा खुद का audit team है तो क्या हुआ, we will not give the access of table level. If it is approved by the management, that's not an issue, but it's auditor, but it's a process owner. But if it is mentioned into the charter, और आपने उसका मैनेजमेंट का अप्रूवल ले लिया, तो आई थिंक यू विल बी ऑन द बेस्ट साइड, सेफर साइड. Because you know, in the I'm talking about the table side, SAP data, आप वहां से काफी चीज एनालाइज कर सकते हो. आपको कोई भी डिपार्टमेंट मना नहीं कर सकता है कि मैं आपको डेटा नहीं दूंगा. So all these things should cover into the charter part. And now the conclusion that yes, a charter, the audit charter should be viewed by the senior management and the governing body as an important board policy document that enables the CAE and the audit activity to effectively carry out their roles and organizations. Obviously बात, अगर मेरे को बोर्ड ने बता दिया कि आपके लिए ये पूरा expectations है, ये मेरा expectations है, and that expectations, if we jot it down in one of the paper as a charter, I think there will not be any miscommunication. And in nutshell, a charter provides a blueprint for how the internal audit will operate and allows the governing body to clearly signal the value, its place on the internal audit independence. So this is the, I can say, the crux of the entire internal charter. And there is no such defined format. So it is up to the management to go kaise banana hai. But yes, all these are the parameters or the key important, I can say, the clauses which should be, or pointers which should be available into the audit charter for the effective audit functions. Thank you so much. Hope I would able to expect the meet the expectations of you. And if any questions, we are ready to hear and will respond. So you are not audible, Kapil, again. Again, not audible, sorry. Yeah, now audible. The voice is less, extremely sorry. Rajesh, so can you hear him properly?
Is it audible, sir?
Yeah, now audible.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thought on such an interesting topic of internal audit charter. And now we can have a question answer session. Have a question. Can a senior management restrict internal audit in a reporting critical internal audit finding in the quarter of occurrence, stating certification that the corrective action will be completed in the following quarter?
I couldn't hear your question. Can you?
Can I address the question?
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Yeah. So the question is: can a senior management restrict the internal auditor from reporting an observation stating that it will be corrected? Okay. So the first thing is the senior management acknowledges that it will be corrected, which means that the observation is factually correct, right? The second point over here is wherever the observation has been pointed out, okay, during the course of the audit and it has not been corrected, it is essential that it should be reported. So in this case, it would not be correct to not report the observation, and the auditor must report the observation and put a timeline to it in the remedial action plan, in the corrective action plan with the date of the quarter end. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is, can the internal audit report to audit committee on error and significant lapse of statutory auditor? Or is it a prior approval from statutory auditor is needed?
No, so let me respond if I'm not wrong. So my views on this is this: suppose if we are doing something on the finance part, and if we have found out some process level gaps, then definitely I think we should report to the management. There is no such approval of the stat audit is required.
That I should also agree.
Mr. Kapil.
Yes.
Internal auditor, see, the charter is the document which empowers internal auditor.
Yes.
There is no protocol for taking permission from statutory auditor, etc. But as far as audit committees are concerned, the issues brought there has to be, the one which you have not been able to address at management level. And secondly, you want audit committee to know of certain information, although you have updated management. But that is, so again, it all depends on how effectively your delegation authority is built in, how effectively is your charter. So ultimately, it is decided more by the empowerment given to the internal auditor.
Not audible.
Kapil, your sound is not coming.
Is it audible, sir?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to invite Mr. Gyan Mishra ji, Vice Chairman of Internal Audit Statutory Standard Board of ICI. Please.
Thank you, Kapil ji. Moderator of today's program. Very good evening to all the respected speakers of today's program. CA Archana Moghe ji, CMA Rajesh Gupta ji, CA Gaurav Mishra ji. Of course, Seema Agrawal ji, Chairperson of Patiala branch. Highly respected in absentia Charanjot Singh Nanda ji. Very respected officers of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, of IASB. In fact, this series is going on for, I think this is 5th or 6th program. And the way the speakers have guided to the participants, it has really been very beneficial for the participants. If we see in the modern scenario, the internal audit has become a major management tool. And in all the organizations, all the business setup, if there is internal control system which is very commensurate to the business and organizational structure and size, then that certainly makes some distinction among the business community. Friends, I am hopeful that today's session has been beneficial to all the participants who have attended it, and I am sure that the type of learning and dissemination of knowledge the board is providing for the participants on weekly basis updation, that is really a marvelous job by the board. One more thing that I would like to share with you, the modern time is really a time where costing, management and internal control system has become integral part to grow with any business organization. So my feeling is that we have to tune up in these terms to ensure the best professional delivery across the industries, and I'm sure that the committee and board will keep on organizing such programs in the interest of the members at large. Once again, I am very thankful to all the respected speakers who have kindly consented and have taken this session today for the board, and very much thankful to respected Chairperson Seema Agrawal ji of Patiala branch, and of course Kapil Rajput ji, moderator, and to the officers of the board. Thank you, one and all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
so much.
With your closing, I'd like to conclude this session, and I would like to thank all the speakers for their
thank you
and Seema for enlightening us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you,
Seema.
Rajesh ji.
Thank you, Kapil.
thank you
Thank you,
you
Gyan Mishra ji.
Thank you, Archana ji.